Son of a... So you decided to buy a PlayStation 4 Monster Hunter World because at around the same time last year, Capcom said it had no plans to localize Monster Hunter Double Cross on the Nintendo Switch. And the PC version still didn't have a concrete release date. You didn't want to bother importing because you didn't want to play a game that you didn't understand and didn't want to carry a guide beside you at all times during gameplay. You gave into the hype and the fear of missing out, only to come to the conclusion that while Monster Hunter World bring a lot of improvements, you still had a lot of problems with it. And you weren't really feeling it. You don't like how it pushes a half-baked story on you with characters that you don't really care about. You always felt that the story took a backseat for a reason. You still prefer Monster Hunter on a handheld console because you don't always have 3 or more hours a night to sit in front of your TV and spend time farming for an armor set or build that suits your playstyle. You prefer to jump in and out of quests while you're on your downtime, like during your lunch break, or while you're in transit, or one more hunt before bedtime, or while you're sitting on the toilet taking a Okay, that's kind of specific. I think you get my point. What is up, internet? Welcome back to Erik's Joystick. I am Erik, of course, and I think we all know what this video is about. Capcom finally announced that they were bringing Monster Hunter Double Cross for the Nintendo Switch to the West as Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate. I'd be lying if I didn't think these names were getting kinda out of hand. As a Switch owner, I'm extremely stoked and excited that this game is finally coming to the West. This is exactly what I wanted on the Switch, and this is one of the games that I hoped the Switch was going to get at launch, and now it's finally here. Sadly, when the game was announced last year as Monster Hunter Double Cross, Capcom had stated that there were no plans to localize the game at the time. I was heartbroken. Monster Hunter World was being shown off on the PlayStation 4, and there was talks of a PC port, and the PC port was going to take a lot longer than the PlayStation 4 port. Y'all already know how I feel about Capcom's support, or lack thereof, for the Nintendo Switch at launch. At least that's not the case now. It doesn't seem like it. I didn't want to wait. A lot of my friends were already on the hype train for this game, so we decided to get a PlayStation 4 with Monster Hunter World. And I haven't regretted getting the PlayStation 4 yet. However, Monster Hunter World, while very fun, wasn't really doing it for me, for reasons I've already brought up. The story is pretty bad. It was never good, but it never really had to be. It always took a back seat. And didn't really force itself on you. And this wasn't the case with Monster Hunter World. I didn't like how the town hub was so unnecessarily big, or how janky the game was, or how the online worked with the new elements clashing in with the old. I hated Scoutflies, and I thought that Ancient Forest was a terrible map. This is turning into a rap, but the list goes on and on. Don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to slam the game. There's a lot of good I think the game does, and I think it brings a lot of small quality of life improvements, and I think it's a good jumping point for newer players. It manages to make the combat feel fresh, but I don't think it's for me. So why am I excited for Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate? Okay, that's a mouthful. I'm just gonna say Monster Hunter GU from here on in. So why am I so excited for it? I poured hundreds of hours into the older games. My love for the series started on Monster Hunter Freedom 2 for the PSP. I played by myself for pretty much all of it, but I liked the idea of jumping in and out of quests on the go whenever I felt like it. That same convenience is what made me love the 3DS versions of Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate and Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate. It was nice to just hang around with other people farming Rathalos or Gormagala or Barioth for the cool armor sets or the weapons, and have a meal or catch up on things. Speaking for myself here, but I don't think I'm the only person that feels the same way when I say this. But I think the handheld consoles are a better fit for games like Monster Hunter, especially since other games like Phantasy Star Portable 2, Freedom Wars, and God's Eater Burst had similar successes on the PSP and PS Vita. While I'm excited for Monster Hunter GU, I can't avoid the fact that this game was developed and released before Monster Hunter World, and doesn't get all the changes and balances that World gets. So here are some things I think you should know if you're jumping into Monster Hunter GU after spending hundreds of hours in Monster Hunter World. This is a port of a 3DS game. Everything is in HD, there are little graphical improvements here and there, but because this is a port, the models and maps look a little dated. Graphics don't really matter though, and the game still looks good in my opinion anyway. This should be obvious, but it goes over a lot of people's heads whenever the series gets a sequel or a new entry in the series or anything like that outside of expansions. You're going to be going into the game with a clean slate. You're not going to have any of your weapons or armor sets made from your previous save file from your last game. unless you're playing through the original 3DS version of Monster Hunter Generations. Don't worry though, because most of your experience and most of everything you've learned from past games will carry over. The combat may be familiar, but Monster Hunter GU still does a lot of things to make it feel different and fresh from Monster Hunter World. Combat in the Monster Hunter games has always been mostly the same, other than the additions of weapons like the Switch Axe and the Charge Axe, the Insect Glaive, and Dual Blades. The combat has only seen small changes over the years. Monster Hunter World continues that, adding small changes to weapon combos here and there. Monster Hunter GU, on the other hand, kinda does this. It adds little changes here and there, but it also adds things like Hunter Arts, which can range from evasive maneuvers, utilities like AoE spells, and flashy moves for each weapon. Each weapon has their own set of Hunter Arts and can be built up by dealing damage to monsters. It also has Hunter styles, which focus on different aspects of combat. There's one that focuses on standard combat, one that focuses on aerial combat, and one that focuses on dodging and countering. There's a little something for everyone there. I think it's very different from the other game. Hunter styles alone give you a huge amount of options on how you fight and make combat feel way different from Monster Hunter World. Bowguns and aiming might feel a little different. I mostly main melee weapons like sword and shield, great sword, insect glaive, and long sword, so I can't really provide insight on how different ranged weapons are. But I can say that camera control may feel a little different. Camera control in the older games felt a little clumsy because the 3DS didn't have a second analog stick. Not until the Circle Pad Pro or the new 3DS anyway. These helped with this issue a little bit, but it still ended up feeling clumsy, because the new 3DS's second analog, if you want to call it that, was this little nipple-looking thing, and it wasn't very good. I bring this up because Monster Hunter GU is a port of a 3DS game, and while the Switch has better analog sticks, the camera control still might feel a little awkward. But the gameplay loop is still pretty much the same. You go out on the quest, you gather items for crafting, you track down the monster, you capture or slay the monster, you carve the monster for parts. You get parts for rewards, you use it on armor and weapons, you do this for 100 hours, maybe a couple of 100 hours, maybe 1,000 hours. I think you get my point. Love it or hate it, it's still the same, but it's the little things that make Monster Hunter World feel different. Monster Hunter World brought a lot of small but important improvements like automatic crafting of consumables and traps. Whetstones have infinite uses. The on-screen map has a lot more detail and information on it than the old maps did. The single player and multiplayer quests share the same quest line, so that way you don't have to play a quest over and over to progress onward. There's drop-in and drop-out multiplayer, and the quest difficulty scales depending on how many players are in the game. You can move while you're using consumable items like potions or antidote. Not all of these changes are in Monster Hunter GU, but the game does include some small quality of life changes over Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate. Then there's those, but then there's some bigger differences, like how the maps are structured and how the quests flow. The maps in Monster Hunter World are very different compared to the older games. In Monster Hunter World, the maps are giant areas that are busy and full of life and full of items and things to discover. In older games, the maps are all segmented up into little areas which can be full of gathering points or little arenas or both. The flow of the hunt is mostly the same though. You track down a monster, you find it, you fight it, chase it off to another area, capture it, and slay it, and continue. Also, scout flies are gone, thank goodness, or they never existed in the first place. Once you find a monster, you can toss a paintball at it and track it down on the map without having to find footprints or gash marks or mucus or anything like that. Movement is a little different though. In Monster Hunter World, slopes are your friend. You can slide down them for faster movement or use them to go for aerial attacks. This isn't in the older games, so that's kind of a bummer. You can still do jumping attacks off of ledges or anything you can climb up on. There's no slinger in the older games either. That's not a big deal for me, because I'm used to the older games, but it might be a deal breaker for newer players. I don't think any of that is that big of a deal. But skills and equipment sets, on the other hand, this is where it might become a big deal breaker for other people. Monster Hunter World changed the way skills and armor sets work. You no longer need 10 points to activate a skill, and you no longer had to work twice as hard for armor sets if you were a ranged weapon user. I mainly use close range weapons anyway, so this is never an issue for me. But if you wanted to do both Blade Master and Gunner, that's a lot of work, that's a lot of grinding, and that's a lot of patience required. And in my opinion, Monster Hunter World changed that for the better. That has to be a deal breaker for someone out there. But is it a deal breaker for me? I booted up my save file on the original Monster Hunter Generations on my 3DS to see how it would play out, and I came to the conclusion that this is fine. Going back to old school Monster Hunter is totally fine. Truth be told, the last Monster Hunter game I spent a lot of time with was Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate. And I didn't really play Monster Hunter Generations because I was kind of already I kind of already got what I wanted out of Monster Hunter at the time. So Monster Hunter GU on the Switch might even feel a little fresher to me because there's way more content on that than Monster Hunter World. There's exclusive content too. And on top of that, it would fit into my lifestyle way more than Monster Hunter World could ever do. Unless it came to the Switch, then, you know, I'd be playing Monster Hunter World on the Switch. Maybe I'd even have different thoughts on that game if it did. But that's probably not gonna happen. Oh, and on top of that, there's playable Palicos. Where was that in Monster Hunter World? I don't know, but Monster Hunter Generations and Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate is gonna have this, and a lot of people like playable Palicos, and apparently they're overpowered. Would I recommend it to someone who started with Monster Hunter World though? If you've played Monster Hunter World and you want to check this out and you have a Nintendo Switch, you can make a Japanese eShop account, go on the eShop, and download the demo for Monster Hunter Double Cross. Or you can wait for the US demo, which is inevitably going to drop pretty soon after E3. Or if you have a 3DS, just get the original Monster Hunter Generations and get a head start. Then again, I'm speaking for myself here. I'm me, you are you. You might have a different opinion than me, and that's totally fine. All I know is between this Dark Souls and the Bedrock Edition for Minecraft on the Nintendo Switch, my Switch is going to be super busy this summer, and I'm super stoked. This is going to be lit. It's going to be lit, kids. If I missed any information that you think is important, leave a comment in the section below or on the side if you're watching this on Twitch. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. You can follow me on youtube.com/user/Erik Joystick for videos, vlogs, unboxings, reviews, and all that kind of fun stuff. You can follow me on twitch.tv/Erik Joystick for the same content and more, plus streams like Coffee Time, and you can watch me play Monster Hunter or a Monster Hunter-like game called Dauntless. You can follow me on twitter.com/Erik Joystick for updates. And you can follow me on instagram.com/Erik Joystick for behind-the-scenes stuff. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm Erik, and I'm out of here. Happy hunting. Peace out. Okay, that's good. That's good. That's good. Just press the... Okay. Okay, now press the... God damn it! Why are you doing this? It's hot.